Hi everyone. In this video we are going to discuss about dynamic trunking protocol DTP. And this protocol is basically a Cisco proprietary protocol. It means it works only on Cisco devices. And with this protocol, actually two switches or two devices, they negotiate about trunking. So let's see what trunking is or what trunk is. So let's see, this is one switch. You can see we have this switch, and this switch will have multiple ports. Let's say we have one port here, and this port can be FA0/1 or FA0/2, any port here, and we can configure this port to work in access mode. And to configure this port to work in access mode, we have this command, switch port mode access, and once we use this command, this port will work in access mode. And what does it mean? So when port works in access mode, it means that port will allow traffic only from a single virtual LAN. So for example, if we assign this port to VLAN 1 or VLAN 2 or VLAN 13, any VLAN, so this port in that mode will only allow traffic from that particular VLAN. We have another mode that is not a trunk mode, and if we assign or we configure this port as trunk port, we configure this port to work in trunk mode, then that particular port will allow traffic from multiple VLANs. And how to configure it? This is the command, switch port mode trunk. In this case, it will allow traffic from multiple VLANs. So this is the difference. In access mode, it only allows traffic from one VLAN, and in trunk mode, it will allow traffic from multiple VLANs. So multiple VLANs, for example, on this side of switch, if we have one VLAN, two VLAN, and here also maybe we have 2, 3, whatever number of VLANs we have multiple VLANs here. And now if we have a link from this switch to this switch, which is connecting VLANs on this side with VLANs on that side, it means now this port and this port, they should be carrying traffic for multiple VLANs. Yeah? So there can be multiple VLANs, and we want to support the traffic from all these VLANs to pass through this VLAN. This can be VLAN 10, VLAN 100, VLAN whatever number. So that is the difference between access mode and trunk mode. And we can manually configure this access mode and trunk mode on these switches. Now, sometimes we are not sure. So for example, we are not sure, or maybe this switch 1 is not sure that what access mode, so what mode this switch is operating in. So in that case, this switch, or there may be this switch, they can actually negotiate with each other. Then maybe let's say this switch will ask this user, are you ready to start working in that trunk mode or not? So in this case, we have these two commands. We can configure any port, like this port, with this command, that is switch port mode dynamic auto, and then we also have switch port mode dynamic desirable. And let's see what's the difference. So with these two commands, these switches are the ports of these switches are basically negotiating with each other. So now if you focus with the on the first command, so in this case, if we configure, let's say if we use this command on that particular interface, then what happens? So in this case, if this is working in dynamic auto, so in this case, this port will work in passive mode. So this will be in passive negotiation. It means this will not start any negotiation. It will wait some action from other side of the switch, and yeah, it will wait for other side to initiate trunking. So initiate trunking means it will initiate trunking using dynamic trunking protocol, that they will talk, or they will negotiate that what mode we both should be working in. So it will wait for other side to start trunking or to initiate trunking using dynamic trunking protocol. And let's say if, for example, this port is configured with this command, and let's say on the other side, if this switch port is configured with dynamic desirable, or this switch port is working in trunk mode, so then in this case, this switch will become trunk port. So I have a table at the end of these slides. So if we have this command, and let's say now if we have, and then it says that if the remote port is set to access mode, and if this is not supporting any dynamic trunking protocol, for example, there can be other switches which do not support dynamic trunking protocol, because we have already said that this is a Cisco proprietary. I mean, mostly Cisco devices use it. So if the other switch is not supporting dynamic trunking protocol, or if this is configured in to work in access mode, then this port will also become access. So you can see, depending on the negotiation from this router or from this port of this switch, not router, sorry, from this port of this switch can assume the role of access port or trunk port. So you can see here, it can assume the role of trunk port only in this condition, and it can assume the role of access port in this particular condition. Yeah. Now we have dynamic desirable mode. So for example, on this port of the switch, we use this command, switch port dynamic desirable. So in this case, this port will actively tries to negotiate trunking. So this will start asking, yeah, it will ask, it will try to convince this port to work in trunk mode. So this will start actively negotiating with the other side. And during negotiation, if the remote site is configured in dynamic auto, or maybe dynamic desirable, or the trunk, then this port becomes trunk port. Yeah? And if the remote port is set in the access mode, if this port is only manually set as to work in access mode, then this port will also become access mode. So now this is the condition, we say dynamic desirable. So this is not passively waiting for other side to initiate negotiation, but now this time when we have this command dynamic desirable, it means it will try to convince this port to work in the trunk port. But for that, this port needs to be in dynamic desirable trunk or dynamic auto mode. Only then this can become a trunk port. But if this port is already working in access mode, like manually, then in this case this port will also become access, will start working in access mode. Okay, now this is the table. Somehow we have different possibilities on these different ports of switches. Let's say we have this port and this port, this switch 1 and switch 2. Now let's say on this switch 1, this interface is configured with switch port mode access, and on this port, on this side, this port is also configured with this command. So both of them are in access mode. You can see switch port mode access. Then what can happen? So for this, to understand this, we have this table. Let's say this table x-axis is for switch 1, and then let's say column, like this column is for switch 2. So when both of the switches are in access mode, then what will be the resulting mode on both of the switches? So you can see here we have access mode for switch 1, and for this switch 2 also we have access mode. Then it means both of the switches the port on both of the switches will start working in access mode. Okay, and then let's say in the second thing, if both of the ports have been configured using this command, it means they have been configured to work in trunk mode on switch 1 and also on switch 2. In that case, what will be the result on both of the switch ports? So now you can see here, when we have switch 1 in the trunk and switch 2 also in the trunk, you can see here. So the resulting mode which will be selected, which will be for both of these ports, that will be trunk. But now we have something interesting. It says that on both switches we have this. On this switch 1 we have commands dynamic desirable, and also here also we have dynamic desirable. So now if you see that on switch 1, if we have dynamic desirable, this one, and on switch 2 also we have dynamic desirable here. So now you can see in this case both of the ports on these two switch will start working in trunk mode. Yes, this switch 1 and maybe switch 2, they actually meet here. And now if both of them are in auto, so for example here we can see in this case we have switch 1 auto here, and then we have switch 2 is dynamic auto. So in this case both of them will start working in access mode. So this is access mode. So in this way we can see, for example, one of them is in auto, second one is in desirable. For example, one of them is in auto, for example here, and second one is desirable. So in this case, this will working in trunk mode. So we can have all these possible combinations that if one of the switch port is in dynamic auto, second one is in dynamic desirable. So whatever possibilities are there, they all have been given in this table, so we can find out this. But one more thing which is here, say that if one of the switches is in access mode and second switch is working as configured in trunk mode, then there will be limited connectivity between those switches. What does it mean? It means in this case, dynamic trunking protocol has failed to establish a consistent connection between these switches, and because of this inconsistency, there can be some issues on the link there. So there will be limited connectivity. So we need to be very careful when configuring this. And yes, sometimes we want to stop these ports to negotiate. So if to stop dynamic trunking protocol negotiation, we can go to that particular port or particular interface, and then we can issue this command, that is switch port no negotiate. So in this case, switch will stop negotiating trunking on these ports. And but the condition is that this port must be already in access or trunk mode. If this will be in dynamic desirable or dynamic auto mode, then this command may not work. Okay, so first we have to make this switch port to work in access or trunk mode, and after that if we issue this command, then this will actually stop DTP negotiation. So that's the last slide to show you, and I think this is very easy to do in packet tracer. I'll show you this as well. But thank you very much for your time. Hope to see you in some other video. Thanks.